On 21st August 1238, the serene valley of Blöndulid, Skagafjörður, Iceland, was the stage of the greatest battle ever to have occurred in Icelandic history, Örlygsstaðir. Two rival factions, the Sturlungar, led by Sighvatur Sturluson and his son Sturla Sighvatsson, faced the combined strength of the Ásbirningar and Haukdælir, commanded by Kolbeinn Ungi Arnorsson and Gissur Þorvaldsson. Kith was arrayed against kith, law yielded to steel, and the fate of the Icelandic Commonwealth was at stake on the end of steel. The Sturlung Age was splitting Iceland apart. By 1238, the Sturlunga family, under Sighvatur Sturluson and his ambitious son Sturla Sighvatsson, desired to dominate the Commonwealth. Up north, the powerful Ásbirningar chieftain Kolbeinn Ungi Arnorsson, allied with Gissur Þorvaldsson of the Haukdælir, united against them in a coalition. The battle would take place at Örlygsstaðir, near the river Blöndua, in the valley Blönduhlíð, Skagafjörður. Historians record that the Sturlungar possessed approximately 1,000 men, while the coalition mustered as many as 1,200. More Icelanders had ever fought in one place at a time. At dawn, on 21st August 1238, horns echoed throughout the valley as the two sides faced off. Family against family, the coalition forces gathered at Örlygsstaðir. The Sturlungar advanced in from the south, banners flying in frozen gusts, while coalition columns poured in from the east and west. Sighvatur, despite age, stood at their head with iron resolve, while Sturla demanded savage assault. Scouts rode in to report the coalition increased hourly, peasant retainers swelling to Kolbeinn's summons. The Sturlungar anchored their line near marsh and farm fences to protect their flanks. Gissur, ever in calculation, hid reserves in depth, waiting to strike when the Sturlungar weakened. The valley, once lush pasture land, now dotted with spears. On 21st August 1238, both forces prepared for the largest Icelandic battle of arms. In the dawn of 21st August 1238, silence fell on Blönduhlíð as the two armies drew up in line of battle. Sturla Sighvatsson rode in front of his men, sword raised, vowing to break the enemy's centre. His father, Sighvatur Sturluson, steadied the left wing near the marsh, determined to hold their ground. Across the battlefield, Kolbeinn Ungi Arnorsson massed the coalition's centre, while Gissur Þorvaldsson brought his right wing into line with firm reserves. The arrows darkened the sky with their hissing as they fell onto shields. War chants chanted. The Sturlunga pushed forward, shield wall booming, shield against shield. Coalition horns answered, spears at the ready, low. Cousins, neighbours, and kinsmen faced each other for an instant. Then, once the lines touched, the greatest battle of Iceland began. The Sturlungar smashed into the coalition's centre, their charge briefly driving back Kolbeinn Ungi's line. Sturla threw his personal guard into the fight, cutting through shields with ruthless determination. But Kolbeinn, unshaken, fed fresh men into the breach, while Gissur swung his right wing forward. The Sturlungar line bent under pressure. Farmers slipped on the sodden turf, breaking formation. Horns sounded from the coalition left, signalling a fresh advance. Surrounded on three sides, the Sturlungar's charge stalled. Sturla, wounded and on foot, stood in the midst of the press and fought dismounted. For a moment it seemed his courage might hold the line, but the coalition's reserves arrived in a wave. The tide turned. With their centre weakening, the Sturlungar were driven back behind fences and ditches. Sighvatur Sturluson, white-bearded but unyielding, would not give in. Sturla, helmet split, battled on his feet until surrounded. Kolbeinn Ungi organized his men with iron discipline, whilst Gissur drove in on the exposed flanks of the Sturlungar. Panic spread down the line as men deserted the shield wall. By mid-morning on 21st August 1238, the Sturlungar were defeated. The Örlygsstaðir field was the alliance's victory. European losses were slight, around 60 dead, but to the minute kin group society of Iceland, this was devastating. Dozens of prominent families lost brothers, fathers, and successors in a morning. The survivors fled towards Mikliber Church, hoping for sanctuary. But the victors, now confident, were ruthless. Sighvatur and Sturla were among those slaughtered. Others, like Þórir Jökull Steinfinnsson, were captured and executed. On 21st August 1238, the laws of kinship broke down under the sword. The defeat annihilated the Sturlunga as a power, and the Commonwealth was ever more dominated by Kolbeinn Ungi and Gissur Þorvaldsson. The executions were remembered bitterly in saga tradition, for they brought Icelandic law and tradition into an era of blood and feud. Örlygsstaðir's field was not forgotten. A monument was raised in 1988, stones arranged in pattern, to mark where men stood and fell on 21st August 1238. Iron crosses mark the dead, their names preserved in saga and soil. The battle secured the dominance of Kolbeinn Ungi and Gissur Þorvaldsson, setting Iceland on the path to more violence at Hauksnin 1246, and eventual submission to Norway in the Old Covenant of 1262. The clash at Örlygsstaðir was not merely the largest battle in Icelandic history, it was a turning point, where kin killed kin, and the law succumbed to the sword. Treading the windy heath today, it is still possible to trace the lines along which Iceland's fate was decided. The Battle of Örlygsstaðir in 1238 was Iceland's largest battle. It was the beginning of the end of its independence. A tale of clans, blood, and the steep cost of division. Remembered by few, but penned forever into Iceland's saga.